Next up, Russ and I are going to give our review of James Cameron's True Lies.
I knew I was pretty stoned on something pretty bad, and I thought me and Jim thought that there was a neurotoxin in the clams.
Welcome back to 4K Kings. My name is Matt.
I am Russ.
And welcome to your home of physical media, movie reviews, and so much more. Russ, the physical media world has dropped down on its knees and rejoiced that James Cameron's 3 titles, The Abyss, Aliens, and True Lies, were finally released somewhere in 4K.
To a selected few.
A few people out there were lucky enough to get those 3 titles in 4K. I only pre-ordered The Abyss. When I pre-ordered it, there was obviously a date, March 12th. Now it says, we'll let you know when we have a date. Walmart, there was nothing there, at least in this area, so no chance of actually having these in our hands. Our plan was to review all 3 films, giving our thorough thoughts. And even though we don't have anything currently and we did not pick these up, we at least wanted to send a teaser out there with our full review of True Lies.
I'm looking forward to it.
I will say, in my defense, I was not going to blind buy True Lies anyway. And since no one sends us these discs ahead of time to get our vital, urgent thoughts on things of the quality of the transfer and so forth, we have to rely on places like Walmart, who completely blew it. But I did finally see this so that we could at least talk about it, go through the review. And even though we don't have the disc in hand, I also wanted to share at least a few reviews that have come so we can at least get an idea about what does it look like, what are people saying. Maybe by the time this goes up, we'll have some screenshots to share as well.
I'm thinking you're not ready.
1994, action comedy, written and directed by James Cameron, about Arnold Schwarzenegger as a U.S. government agent who struggles to balance his double life as a spy with his familial duties. This is based on, which I did not know, a 1991 French film called La Totale, something to that effect. Its translation is The Jackpot. I didn't obviously watch this movie, but I did check out the Wikipedia and read the plot, and it sounds like James Cameron borrowed like beat for beat from this movie.
You know what? Don't worry about it.
James Cameron filmed this after Terminator 2 and right before Titanic. Starring Arnold Schwarzenegger, Jamie Lee Curtis, Bill Paxton, Tom Arnold, and Charlton Heston in a cameo, which kind of made me laugh when I saw him.
So far, this is not blowing my skirt up, gentlemen.
Although critics were slightly mixed on the film, leaning towards the positive, it was a huge box office hit.
What?
Huge smash.
I'm sure it was successful. A huge hit?
I think I already know the answer to the question here.
So it went on to gross $378 million worldwide, $146 in the U.S. It was the 3rd highest grossing film of 94 behind The Lion King and Forrest Gump.
I'm rethinking everything now.
Well, I'm excited to talk this through with you now that I've got more of a perspective on the movie and to hear your thoughts again. For me, Arnold wasn't that great in this. I felt like I liked the supporting cast so much more. I feel like I liked Jamie Lee more. I feel like I loved when Bill Paxton was on. When you had...
That's part of the movie.
Yeah, when you had even Tom Arnold show up and be this sort of comic relief. Arnold was just fine. But usually when I'm seeing an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, he's like so larger than life, so prominent. It's weird to say one note. I guess it's just like nothing blew me away about his performance here.
You could say, okay, maybe this was the 90s and Arnold was starting to coast a bit. I don't think it's that. I think Arnold was doing a spy movie.
Yeah.
And I think in Arnold's head, that is cold, cool demeanor. But unfortunately, I think Arnold has to overact a bit. Like in Kindergarten Cop, like, shut up, you gotta like, and in this, he's doing like Sean Connery, James Bond.
Yeah, low emotion.
Low emotion.
Yeah.
I think that's what you're seeing. With Arnie, you like the warmth or you like the bravado. And
Right.
here, there's neither.
I feel like Jamie Lee had such a great character and story arc, and Arnold was just like, this one-note Sean Connery spy kind of guy, which actually is kind of interesting in hindsight, because I remember we talked about this cover changing and putting her on it, and she had never been on it. I mean, I feel like it is both of their movies when I watch this thing. Like, I always kind of pictured it as an Arnold-only thing.
And I believe I said that when these got announced, that this cover change was the least offensive out of all of them.
Yeah, and I think even James Cameron and her had a conversation around the time of making this movie.
I got a phone call from Jim. Jim said, I called Arnold today because I've just watched the movie again, and it really is a domestic epic. And I asked Arnold if it was okay to put your name above the title alongside his, and he's agreed.
Obviously, her brave iconic viral scene, which again, rewatching this movie and only knowing that scene, it's still, I feel like the thing that probably most people remember about this movie. You think True Lies, you're like, oh, Jamie Lee Curtis scene. That scene is larger than anything in this movie.
I didn't realize it was as big as it was. But you're right, even that is the first thing I think of when I think of this movie.
It's just because it's so unexpected, and she's very, like, you wouldn't expect that of Jamie Lee Curtis, I think, but especially in this role where she's basically a librarian, and all of a sudden you put this performance in there, which totally works, by the way. I think that becomes memorable, where I feel like other parts of this movie should have been memorable as well, but somehow that steals the show.
Curtis, Tom Arnold, and for me, Bill Paxton. The stuff with Bill Paxton, that could be its own movie to me.
Yes.
The whole idea of this guy pretending to be a double agent just so he could, hit on women and being caught up in a real espionage situation. That would be a better movie than what True Lies is. I wanted a whole movie with that character.
Yeah.
Rest in peace to a legend.
The vet gets him wet.
I was worried he was going to be a cameo, but he's like in the whole. Well, it's a cameo, but he's like in the whole movie.
Remember what I told you that before? It's like a good chunk of the first like half hour, 45 minutes.
Yeah.
And it's so enjoyable because by the end of the movie, it just goes bombastic action, Michael Bay type levels of absurdity. But like that stuff in the beginning with Paxton is so brilliant.
Every time he showed up, I was happy. I was excited to see him come back. And then Tom Arnold too. Like, I don't think he rose to the level of like my Bill Paxton enjoyment, but he's got that comic relief in here that's funny.
I'm starting to like this guy.
Some of the bombastic stuff you're talking about is another thing that I really liked about this movie. I felt like that it's James Cameron, the set pieces were, huge, like Jamie hanging from the, helicopter, all the explosions. Dude, like it nails all of that element beautifully.
It nails all of it in execution.
Yes.
It's incredible to look at. Cameron's not going to fuck up any type of action or spectacle. But what Cameron does fuck up on, and I'm sorry, Cameron's not, it's not his strong suit, comedy.
I don't know if humor is an emotion. I guess it is.
Juxtapose his genius levels of staging action and capturing all of that stuff. It doesn't really mix with comedy very well because he's a goddamn master at that. You're too in awe. It's like it doesn't translate into comedy very well. By the end, like I said, there's no more character moments. It's just the last 30, 45 minutes again is just pretty much straight action.
Everything you just said, I agree with. That's kind of like my segue into sort of the things I didn't like. That thing you said about it being like a James Bond sort of feeling, I feel like it works perfectly. I feel like everything in terms of execution works great, but the tone and the comedy, like you said, I felt like was just strange because I was going into this thinking this was straight action. And then I could tell they were trying to be funny with this too. And not just Tom Arnold and Bill Paxton. There were literal like gags and jokes and different things. And they weren't like hitting for me. And even when I mentioned a second ago, like Arnold, me not really caring too much about him in the movie, other movies I've seen him in where he has one-liners and stuff, it hits. And here, the jokes he was saying or whatever, it just was dry. And what I found out, and you might already know this, James Cameron hired a trio of comedy writers to write all of the comedy elements.
I didn't know this.
Then read what they wrote, fired them, and wrote it himself instead.
You know what I mean?
Like the tone's all over the place. There's moments where to me, it's almost reaching like Hot Shots Part 2 levels where like the gun is killing people as it's going down the steps. But then it goes so serious to the other side where I'm like jarred by it and I can't enjoy the comedy.
I will admit, even though I just trashed the end, that machine gun going down the steps thing to me was kind of funny.
It is, but that's the thing. The whole movie doesn't feel like that.
You're right. You know what? You're right. I give Jamie Lee Curtis a ton of props for this movie. If you take her out of this movie, holy shit. Cameron's too intense, man. He's not a funny guy.
No,
he's too intense. Even in interviews, he's intense. He's not trying to be. It's funny. You can tell.
I mean, okay, maybe I'm just bad. Maybe I'm just not good.
I feel like I'm in the same way. It's like there's some things to like. There's some things to not. I'm lukewarm. I'm right in the middle.
Do you agree with the criticism I received? And that's all. But like I say, it's a thoroughly mid movie. It's nobody's favorite movie of all time, but nobody's going to say it's the worst movie they've ever seen. Entertaining. You're not going to waste your time watching it. You know what? It's a perfect movie if you're hungover on the couch on a Sunday. even the criticism,
it's easy.
Yes, it's easy. Even the criticisms we're lobbying against it. I mean, it maybe we're being too harsh for what it ultimately is.
Assholes.
You could have put that on and not told me who directed it. I don't think I would have guessed James Cameron. I don't know if there's like a lot of signature stuff in there that maybe I'm just like missing, but all the other innovative shit you see in every movie he's ever made. It's just some like midway point to Titanic.
But that's what I'm saying. Like maybe we're just holding it to this insane James Cameron standard when honestly it's probably just passable entertainment and that's good enough.
Yeah.
And if you're paying attention, it's what we're really saying is, wow, James Cameron is great. It's just like we don't feel like he was peak James Cameron right here.
Did you know that a sequel was almost immediately discussed for this movie?
Why?
James Cameron was in the middle of doing Titanic, so they were writing the script and getting stuff ready. He was previewing stuff while he was making Titanic. 9/11 happens, and then all of a sudden, they put it on hold because there's obviously a big terrorist element that's in True Lies 2, or how it's written, involving airplanes and stuff. So they were like, okay, well, we can't put this out yet. We're going to need to either rewrite or just shelve it for a little while. Then eventually, by like 2009, James Cameron was like, yeah, I have no plans to make this. And now, obviously, he's making Avatar till he dies, so.
Is it a franchise?
Could be.
This isn't Predator. This isn't Terminator. Even for Jamie Lee, this isn't Halloween. This isn't a movie that anybody fell in love with. And how I always defend my stance on True Lies, I will ask you this. What is your favorite James Cameron film? I guarantee you, you are not going to say True Lies.
Oh, okay.
Anyone I ask is going to put Aliens above it. Terminator 2 will go above it. It's damn near fact. So take a breath, look at it with an objective state of mind, and just realize this is a
upper mid.
An upper mid film. This is an S tier mid.
He has particular tastes.
If you did want more True Lies, Russ, there was a television series that came out on CBS in 2023. It was canceled after one season. James Cameron himself followed this up with Titanic, Arnold with Eraser, Jingle All the Way, and Batman and Robin. Jumping over to the physical media side, this movie did make a splash on home media with VHS, Laserdisc, and DVD, but never made its way to Blu-ray. And with fans clamoring for this to be released, we finally, or at least some of us finally, have it at home on 4K.
The whole physical media story of this title has made it more sought after than it necessarily needs to be. True Lies in the Abyss sort of became an urban legend of we need this, not even a Blu-ray, it's James Cameron. And it makes sense. Like, I thought the same thing. How the hell did this never even get a Blu-ray? So for the fans out there, I am genuinely happy. We've been reading people complaining about this for decades. And now you finally have it. We don't, but some of you finally do. And even though we don't have it, I did at least want to talk about some of the three main reviews that I read. One from DigitalBits, one from bluray.com, and one from High Def Digest. A mix of, different opinions just to kind of see what people are saying out there. I know most fans still have like PTSD from the Terminator 2 4K, so everyone's like worried. And I know, again, early screen grabs for this did not look promising. Here's what DigitalBits is saying, Russ. True Lies in physical 4K improves upon the 4K digital presentation in ways you'd expect, but it's given a much too aggressive and modern remastering that belies the look of the film and is extremely uneven. Given that True Lies has never appeared on US Blu-ray, it would be difficult to argue that it isn't a major improvement over past DVD and Laserdisc editions, but the film does look processed and certainly more modern than mid-90s vintage.
Great.
Bluray.com said, there is what I think is an unmistakable skewing toward a more digital capture look, which does admittedly offer some really superb detail at times, especially when close-ups are employed. I'm not sure the increased resolution of this release is really a friend to some of the effects. Fans of this film may frankly prefer the 1080p version in this package, since it may tone down a bit of the processed appearance that is kind of unavoidable in the 4K Ultra HD version. James Cameron evidently likes a more modern digital look for True Lies.
You know what I mean?
And then the last one, this one's kind of like right in the middle. This is High Def Digest. The detail is often extremely sharp and vivid, breathing new life into those close-ups. But some people are complaining about the film looking too good or that it looks too smooth in its operation. It looks like a brand new film, not something that was shot 30 years ago, which is a feat in itself. But how new and clean it looks may be the sticking point for many. That said, the one big difference that I noticed is when Schwarzenegger clobbers the two attack dogs in the beginning, it's now extremely clear they were rubber dogs. It's probably not perfect. It clearly sounds like it's not. I don't think anyone was ready for it to be perfect. I think everybody was ready for it to be shit. It doesn't sound like it's utter shit, but if you did purchase it and it's something that you are passionate about, let us know if you liked it either way or didn't like it. Looks like this release got 2 new features as well. Look back at True Lies with the cast and crew and some archival script, artwork, marketing, production secrets of True Lies. If you liked this video, if you liked this review, if you agree with our views, if you don't agree with them, please let us know. And if you haven't subscribed,
I can't think of any True Lies quotes, so subscribe to us if you want to live.